Okay, you can start whenever you're ready.
All right. Um, excuse me. Welcome to the April 18th meeting of the CB6 Housing and Homelessness Committee. My name is Rich Mintz, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:33 p.m. And tonight we are joined by Community Associate Alexandra Crawford. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there's time following the committee discussion, we will field questions from the public. Abby has volunteered to take minutes at tonight's meeting. Thank you, Abby. You all should have received an email from the board office with a link to a Doodle sign-up sheet for minutes taking at your committee meetings in 2022. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat right now. We will now take attendance by roll call. Alexandra will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Neil Barclay.
Present.
Abigail Cruzmark.
Present, sorry.
Rich Mintz.
Present.
Anju Suresh.
Present.
Sandra Leftoff.
Present.
Maura Wong.
Present.
Eric Goldberg.
Present.
And Michael Devereaux.
Present.
We have quorum.
Thank you. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the February 15th meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objection, the minutes from the February 15th meeting are adopted and will soon be available on the CB6 website. And for your information, the minutes from the January 18th meeting are still being reviewed and will be up for adoption at the May committee meeting. And just to disclose, that is my fault that the January minutes are late. I will take care of that as soon as I can. All right. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you're having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee meeting is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. We are required by New York State law to have a transcript of the meeting, so please keep your questions and comments succinct and germane to the discussion. So we're going to go into the agenda, and I will note that the juicy part of today's meeting is our budget requests and any new budget requests that anyone might want to propose that we haven't talked about. In old new business, I will mention the housing bills that our council member Carlina Rivera introduced related to social housing that she mentioned at full board, and we can decide whether we want to take those up or talk about them further next month. So the first agenda item is the status of tenant protections. Excuse me. And I know that you got a dense presentation on that last or discussion of that last month in the last meeting, or I guess it was 2 months ago in the meeting that I missed. I am not aware of any forward motion on good cause or any of the other tenant protection conversations, eviction moratorium, and so on. Does anyone else know anything to the contrary? I see a hand raised. Yes, go ahead.
I actually sent you and Abby what I had found out about it because we were going to pursue it, and I hadn't heard, so I don't know where we're at with all of that.
Oh yeah, I did get your email.
Yeah. So I didn't know if you wanted to pursue it or
well,
not. I had spoken to Jesus, so
yeah.
okay.
I mean, first I'm wondering, do we know of any events in the world related to this? I don't see anything
What kind
other
of
than,
event?
well, I mean, the legislation obviously has not been taken up yet.
Right.
It looks like we have pretty wide support for good cause among our supporters. Our electeds. I don't know if it's universal, but it seems pretty wide. Because I missed the meeting, I don't know whether we talked, whether there was a consensus in this group about whether we wanted to take a position on it. Did we talk about that, or did we just defer?
I think I'll give you my version, but Abby probably right. You want to, as I recall, we needed more information, right? And
Yeah.
Jesus had raised an issue, possibly having a community meeting so we could get feedback about what this, the lack of protections for tenants who have to keep signing these, these leases. But it was left of we needed more information. And as you said, most of the political people involved are from this area are in favor of the good cause, but it got nowhere, right? You heard that came up at the meeting, at the general meeting. So it was so that's where we're at. The thing I had written you is, did we want to pursue it as a committee on some longer term basis as an issue that's relevant in our community?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like, just to speak for myself, not for the committee, I like the idea of our taking up issues like that as causes that we support, not necessarily tied to specific legislation that is pending, since, as you know, a lot of these bills are multi-year conversations. I mean, this has also come up in my other committee, the health committee, where the state, health insurance, universal health insurance plan comes up year after year after year, and in the legislature, and it may not happen now, but if it's something that we support or people support, we could consider pushing for it. Do we want? I like the idea of a community forum, or at least some sort of poll of the community. What do we think we'll get out of that? I'm not putting anyone on the spot. I'm just trying to talk it through. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, there's a way in which, if we have a community forum, if you want to build up some consensus in a community, you got to get people's voices. People need to understand that they're not alone, that it's not a solitary issue. I know too many people right now who are facing new leases, and they're leaving the city because they cannot afford the 30 or 40% increase. But when you feel like you're standing by yourself, the action is much more tempered. One of the issues of holding any kind of community meeting is you make people aware in the community that they're not alone. And certainly this is a very serious issue in terms of disruption of people's lives. So I think from that perspective, the more there's a sense of action, and I always think of the community board as having that role. So one of the things I'm trying to figure out what we do in the community board. But I think that's a really important role of bringing consensus and therefore increase pressure on these issues.
So it would be the way that you were thinking about it, would be less a political meeting to advocate for anything specific necessarily, and more a a meeting to talk about the contours of the issue and the ways in which people in our community are being affected.
Yeah, you could give the community members a voice in the issue. Certainly, we know Liz Kruger supports it, and so on. The local people who are voting on it support it.
Yeah.
But you just create more attention to the issue. That's a good thing.
Okay.
So
Okay. I mean, I'd be open to that if there is informal consensus among groups that would be a good idea, and I'd be happy to participate in making that happen. I don't see any. Oh, I see two hands. There we go. They just appeared. Anju and then Abby.
Yeah, I actually just then wanted to clarify like what we're deciding on or voting on, I guess, is to bring together or to gather input from the community on like how, and maybe individual stories and anecdotes of like how people are being affected by the rent increases, and kind of putting together, would this be moving in the direction of putting together like a resolution, or is it really to help give the community a voice in how they're being impacted by this issue?
I mean, I think it would have to be part public education with the support of one or more of our electeds who have more substantive knowledge about the issue than we do. Not necessarily our electeds, like there are nonprofits too, but I mean, our electeds have compiled sort of what the story is about it. So we could probably get one of the offices to participate, but the other half would be an opportunity to let members of our community talk about the ways in which the lack of constraints on property owners have made it more difficult for them to survive in the city. That's my read of what we're talking about. In regard to a resolution, I mean, I like what Sandra has suggested, which is that we should have a position on tenant protections that is broader than simply this bill that probably won't pass should pass. Because I think we do a lot of symbolic position taking on the community board where, all of our electeds are in favor of something and we say, yeah, we're in favor of it too, which I don't think is a bad thing to do at all. But I would like us to consider having more of a long-term view on some of these issues, is my personal opinion. Abby, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I just remember from the February meeting that the committee was very much in favor of tackling the issue. I don't know if it ended up in a particular form, but I think just based on that meeting, there was a lot of consensus about the need for this and how it affected certain members of the board personally. So I think you're right though, in terms of like public education, what this bill would include, how it's different from other good cause eviction with like Mitchell-Lama. Like I think it's very complex. So having some sort of education forum would be helpful, and then could build some momentum like into a resolution. I think that would work really well.
All right. Well, what would the next step be? Would it be for 2 or 3 members of this group, a subgroup, to think about an agenda for that and who we might have participate? Yes, Sandra.
I can't find my hand, but
No, it's fine. I see your hand.
Let's see. Anyhow, one of the issues, but I think part of what happened was Jesus was at the meeting and he got involved in it and was committed to or was interested in some community outreach and
Okay.
seemed to want to get involved in that. So I thought that would, that's certainly one. And he has, really thought about it.
Yeah.
and so that might be a starting point to also ask him what he was thinking about. He obviously had given it some thought, and it didn't, I don't think it just hit him.
That sounds great. I mean,
Yeah.
he is a extremely plugged in community resource that we
Yeah.
have access to, that I think we sometimes forget how intensely involved he is in some of these issues personally. So is the action item for this that I have a conversation with Jesus about this, and then follow up with you, Sandra and Abby,
Yeah,
and
that would be great.
talk about an agenda to proceed? Did the two of you agree that that's okay for me to do? Yes,
Yes,
I see
Yeah,
nodding.
that works.
Okay.
okay, good.
Any comments or objections to that from anybody else before we informally adopt that as the course of action? All right, very good. Thank you all. I feel more oriented having had this conversation. We'll now turn to the second agenda item, which is the exciting topic of budget requests. Excuse me. Alex, when it's convenient for you, I think you have the ability to display our budget requests up on the screen.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick, just show everybody where the budget requests are, just so
Great.
if anybody wants to see them on their own time, they can as well. So let me share my screen.
I have them up in front of me.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yeah.
So as you can see, I'm on the CB6 website, and I went to the committees page, and I went to the committee page for budget and governmental affairs. And then if you scroll down, you'll see view budget requests. When you click on that, you'll be able to see all of the budget requests for every single committee. And since this committee is the Housing and Homelessness Committee, we're going to do a filter just so that we can only see the budget requests for this committee. So I'm going to click on committee, has any of, and I'm going to click H&H, Housing and Homelessness. And then you'll be able to see the budget requests for this committee. So,
Excellent.
and yeah.
Wait, why am I seeing 12 and you're only seeing 10? Oh, because I'm seeing the ones that were removed in 2021. I think. Because I'm seeing here, let me sort these in the same order that you have. Yes, security guard for Strauss houses, we get that?
It's number 5. Oh wait, actually, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I see, hang on. I sorted them by 22 rank. Yeah. I see housing for formerly homeless families, school-based social workers, and security guard for Strauss houses. Because we removed 2 of those last year. We removed one in 2021. All right, fine. So the ones that you are showing here are the ones that we actually presented in the current year.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see. And we've got we need to decide whether all of these deserve to stay on, whether they're ranked in the right order, and whether there are any other specific budget requests we would like to propose to the city. And rather than me talking about all of these, I'll start by opening the conversation to see if anyone has any specific thoughts that you would like to share.
Sorry,
Yeah,
just to chime in. I wouldn't worry too much about the ranking, just because usually the budget committee does that at the very end. But
all right, fine. Because I was going to ask, where did this proposed 2024 rank come from? But I see it's just last year's rank copy over. so never mind.
Yeah, that usually comes at the end of the process, I believe. So that usually comes after all of the budget requests have been gone through already. And then I believe that's when the committee does the ranking. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
All right. I see that some of these are general, and some of these are specific. Like, I mean, I don't know how we're going to get the city to take action on a request like provide more supportive housing. Even something like public bathroom facilities. I know that there's a separate working group among community boards, which I'm part of, that's working on that issue. But what is our track record historically about getting big idea budget requests like this to have any action taken on them? And I'm not suggesting they shouldn't be on here. I'm just I'm just saying, I mean, these are things that the city's not going to say, all right, we're going to solve the senior housing problem. Although, hang on, I'm looking at the blurbs.
I have a question about,
Yeah, if
go
you
ahead.
want me to open one of the, if there's one that you want to view, just let me know and I could just click on it.
yeah, Alex, I was actually wondering if we could look at the Strauss houses, number 5. I noticed in the text that it says that we will keep it as an active request until we are sure this critical need has been met. As this is my first year on the committee, I'm not sure how and what we've been tracking specifically, or if there's any more information about this one for this year.
Is this the one? Oh, Abby, your hand is up, but I haven't answered that if Abby isn't about to answer it. Abby, go ahead.
Just generally, I wanted to say that I think last year and in many of the committees, we have similar discussions about like very general items versus very specific items. But I think what's really helpful is if in these blurbs, we can give like very specific examples and data to back up our request. I think that's most helpful, whether the request is like very general, very specific. I think that Strauss houses in particular, I remember, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, their sort of like 2-door security system was not working and has not been working for many, many years. And it's been very irritating every time this comes up and it's not yet fixed. But I think they're like the more data we can put behind this, like the more incidents we can cite, I think would be helpful in, having the city not just sort of take it as a general request, but a very specific one.
Am I remembering wrong, or did we get one of these Strauss houses requests filled by council money like a year ago?
I don't recall, but I assume Marin does. I know she's not on the board, but maybe.
I'm not seeing anything here that suggests that. Maybe I'm hallucinating that. All right. Well, hang on, I'm scrolling. We essentially got our dedicated homeless outreach team. Like, I'm looking at this broader list of requests. So it is possible to get things. That was our number one last year. We didn't get a dedicated homeless outreach team, but we did get an expanded homeless outreach in our zone, funded out of regular budget and out of council member funds. So that obviously we want more, we always want more services, but that one is not, that's not the highest priority anymore. Assuming that the existing homeless outreach work is working, and I should actually follow up with the contract provider and find out how things are going. Honestly, I don't really know what the process is for reviewing and vetting these. We've got basically 3 categories of things, right? We have build more housing of various types. We have provide more services for vulnerable people. And that's, that in that I'm including things like restroom and shower services and outreach. And then there are, improve the services and housing for people who are homeless, which right now is stabilization beds. That's the thing that we've been asking for. I mean, I guess supportive housing is in that category too. And then we have our couple of small capital requests, like the Strauss House's doors, which you would think that new doors in one building or like in two or three entrances would be sufficiently small that we could actually get it done. But we don't seem to be able to get it done. Are there any big issues, and are there any small or micro issues that anyone has in their mind that we think needs to be on this list? Oh, sorry, there are hands up. I see in order of hands up, Julie, I see Julie Friedman's hand is up. Julie is an attendee. And then we have Sandra and Abby. Sorry, Alexandra, may I let an attendee speak at my discretion in this part of the meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Can we give Julie permission to speak?
Yeah, you should be able to speak.
Okay.
I appreciate very much for allowing me to go in. And first of all, I just want to let you know that how much I appreciate all of you. The enormous amount of time and energy and effort you put forward is really remarkable. The comment that I have is on the stabilization beds.
Yeah.
And I fully support the former conversation about involving the community regarding eviction and regarding landlord, right? Dialogue on how to sort of keep landlords in check, especially with the rent. I think that if you're going to include stabilization beds, I think you need to have the community involved on this also. Everyone is affected with the stabilization beds, and I'm not sure yet that we know where 161 Lexington Avenue falls out, because it's only, I think, a third occupied or a quarter occupied.
Yeah.
So I think that it's very important that we sort of vet it better before you start adding more to the community. I was on a precinct meeting for precinct 17, and they were talking about how their shelter, their stabilized bed shelter, they receive multiple calls a day for essentially violence within the shelters. So that doesn't even talk about the ones that still outside the shelters. So I think that it's important that this board really sort of understands more of the long-term implications before they decide to go forward with more projects.
Well, that's actually a very good reminder that we need to follow up with 161 and find out what the trajectory of that is. So thank you for that. Sandra, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just, I'm not sure what the issue on the budget is, period, because I've not dealt with it. I'm new on all of this. I don't know if we're talking about that the city has funds and we specifically request them. All I know is from the other committee I'm on, there's a sense that it takes a lot of time. It doesn't, as I'm on this, it doesn't exactly happen. And I'm not sure what the issue is in even declaring we're interested in this. What's the likelihood of something happening? What's the funds involved? How much is involved? And if you say something like we want more affordable housing, that's a very big issue.
Yeah.
Is it for this community or not? What's the money? Who's determining that? Just so I get some idea of what we're talking about.
I mean, the short answer is that this is first and foremost a statement of committee priorities for the city. In terms of what it actually leads to, small things that are easily funded, like in theory, like the Strauss House's doors, can be funded out of discretionary council funds, and sometimes they are. Giant things like we need more affordable housing are really more symbolic than they are action oriented, because I mean, this statement is not going to drive the city to make $1 billion investment in constructing housing. I think where we have an opportunity to influence things is in the middle. As an example, this funds to research and contract restroom and shower services is the sort of thing where we're asking for a medium-sized amount of money to do a relatively specific thing to move toward a goal. It should be possible for some of those things to be funded across our all of our committees. That doesn't necessarily mean that they are. Like DOT has had one in there. Transportation Committee has had one in there to asking the DOT to study signal timing based on a resolution of ours from, I think, 3 years ago, that every year it goes in, and every year they come. I'm thinking of another one. Transportation has had one in there asking for safe bicycle facilities, and every year they come back and say, well, there's not enough information in here. There's not enough detail, and we're like, but you're the people who are supposed to. You're the traffic engineers. So, like, I think that there's some of that passive aggressive back and forth, but I do think that both the symbolic ones and the concrete ones do have some value. Abby, your hand is up.
Yeah, may I make a suggestion on how to move forward? Okay, so I think what you're saying is true. Like, there's a lot of these back and forth over the generic requests. So I think first and foremost, each of these requests needs more detail. And then I think second, they need to be updated. So I'm looking, for instance, at the more school services for homeless students. This doesn't really factor in the pandemic at all, and it probably should. And then, for instance, we don't know really what's going on with Strauss houses. So I think it would be helpful if each committee member could take one, just sort of like research, see where we're at, find out who our stakeholders are, find out updated facts, and then sort of like rewrite it just so it doesn't all fall on you.
Yeah. All right. Well, I like the idea of, I keep trying to touch the screen, even though it's just the screen share. I like the idea of sort of breaking up the conversation. Alexander, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think that's a good idea. And also just to keep in mind, so for the blurbs, there is a character limit. I believe it's 800 characters. So if each committee member were going to take, each blurb and update it, I would definitely keep that in mind, just so that you know that it can't be too long and you kind of have to fit everything that you want in a very limited amount of space. So just to keep that in mind.
Okay. Anju, your hand is up.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Are there actual dollar amounts listed for these line items, or is it supposed to be more general, and then for budget items that get approved, we start scoping the work?
No, Alexander will have the official answer to that, but my memory is that we do attach dollar amounts where there are dollar amounts to be attached.
Okay. Yeah, because I just don't see it on the.
I'm looking. Alexander, do you know whether there are dollar amounts of these? I'm having trouble using this thing.
I'd have to double check, but I believe for the budget, well, at least in this table, I know it's just breaks it up by capital versus expense versus continued support, which do have different implications in terms of the dollar amount, but I don't believe that this table specifically lists the dollar amount, but I would have to double check in general.
All right. There are certainly, if there are things that we know what the dollar amount is, we should say. But at the same time, it's I don't think we need to do research or anything like that. So how should we break these up? I mean, I will take on, with the permission of all of you, I will take on stabilization beds because I have to, I mean, I'm going to, stabilization beds and outreach, homeless outreach, because I'm going to, I have follow-up items on those both already anyway. Sounds like nobody objects to that, so I consider myself tasked. Anyone else? Anyone interested in any of these specific topics? Abby, your hand is up.
Yeah, I can follow up on stress houses because I
Okay, great.
had been in one of those meetings. I mean, are there any on this list that we think that shouldn't be on there anymore? I guess that's also a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we may, homeless outreach may come off if we got what we wanted last year in the general budget. I believe it was Councilmember Rivera's office that funded an increase in homeless outreach in this area, and that's what I want to follow up about. Because I mean, if we got that, we can drop it and make room for another priority. But the rest of these, like we got more school services for homeless students, but you know, I mean, we only got sorry, we only got some. Public bathrooms, we've gotten nothing. Senior housing, to my knowledge, supportive housing. So senior housing, to my knowledge, we've gotten nothing. Supportive housing, we're getting this this New Providence project, which has a supportive housing component. But you know, I mean, that's like 1% of the need. So that, I mean, that one I don't think we should drop, in my opinion. Anju, your hand is up. I think your hand is up.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I'm muted. So I was actually going to offer that I would help build out the supportive housing piece to it. But to your point, if project renewal is already going to move forward with or without this being a budget line item, does that just not, do we essentially nix that, or do we still want to explore that as a?
No, my opinion, again, I keep saying that, I would like to leave it in.
Yeah.
I mean, we need 20 projects the size of that one to begin to touch the need.
Yep, I would be happy to help do some research on this, on the need for our community.
Okay, that would be great. Sorry.
Hey, Rich?
Yes, Neil.
Just a question, I guess, to go back on the school services.
Yeah.
Alexandra, I don't know if you could open up the blurb where it says blurb for FY23. Yeah, because Rich, I believe that you said that some money was received for this request.
Well, they, if I remember from the education committee, the city invested in counselors for students in non-traditional housing. I'm thinking back like a year,
Okay.
which is aligned with this budget request, even though not in response to the budget request. But I don't know. Sorry, I don't know what the blurb. Oh, you opened the blurb.
Yeah, I was just taking a look.
Yeah. See, the problem with this blurb is it's not clear what we're asking for.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's it's really broad, right? That's a pretty broad
Yeah.
request.
I mean, I would be interested in, if you're interested in thinking about this, if you would like to write a couple of sentences that specifically target what we think is needed, that we could shoehorn into this somehow, I think it would be good. Because like the way this is written, it's easy for them to just sort of ignore.
Yeah. That I'm thinking, because there's just being on the youth and education committee, by looking at this, there's so many services that are needed for children in transitional housing, especially in our district. There's a number of children in transitional housing.
Do you happen to remember whether there are budget requests on the education committee side on this topic?
I know that we are going to discuss that next Tuesday,
Okay.
Of course, I can ask John Keller, but I believe so. This does sound like something that we have discussed before, and I remember that you were on the education committee. You and I both were on the education committee. So this is, and Abigail was on there as well. So it does sound, this does sound like something that we had discussed, but I guess we didn't really get into the weeds with what exactly what that we could do, or what was really needed.
Right. All right. Well, so we should probably coordinate with the education committee on that. I have another one, which is that the offices that manage landlord compliance with, rent regulation and so forth, have had their budgets slashed. I saw a news story yesterday that said one of the offices is down to a staff of 0. So I mean, we might consider asking that some of those positions be better funded. So maybe, I'm sorry, I keep coughing. Maybe I'll put on my list to write up a potential blurb for us to discuss at the next meeting. Okay. Is there anything else anyone else in this group wants to? Oh, Sandra, your hand is up.
I have one more question of, so I would say, well, I would find out something about housing for seniors, but I don't have the knowledge, I don't, where would I get the information? How do you get started? You bring up something about rent regulation. That's that's certainly an important issue, but short of reading The City or The Gothamist, I don't have the resources to find out where the problems are and in our community. So how do we go about this?
My guess for that one in particular is that the place I would start is with someone like Katie Loeb in Councilmember Rivera's office, because Katie Loeb, who's our community liaison,
in Carlina Rivera's? Yeah,
because they're I mean, they track all of these issues from policy perspective, and I mean, all the council members think about this stuff, but Councilmember Rivera in particular has invested some of her political capital in advocating for social housing, because her district includes, I mean, among other reasons, because her district includes the Lower East Side, which has historically been a neighborhood containing both social housing and senior housing. And so, she's got a sort of natural constituency. If you'd be interested in talking to Katie, I can give you her email address.
Sure.
In fact, I can just give it to you now. There's no need to make a whole other.
No, be coy. It makes, you'd be better off at that.
It's Loeb, Katie, Kitie, Loeb, Loeb, and it's K Loeb at council.nyc.gov. Yeah.
Okay.
She's very nice.
Okay.
I think we had an argument about something once, and aside from that, I've had nothing but good interactions with her.
All right, thanks.
Okay. What else? Let's see if she's here. She could be. No, she's not showing as being here. But she's great, and she can refer you within the office to the person who does the policy stuff, if you need to. All right. Oh, 2 hands are up. Hang on. Abby first. Sorry, excuse me. Mara first, and then Abby.
Yeah, I'm looking at Alexandra, if you can go back to the list, to the public bathroom facilities request. And I'm curious if this is regarding public restroom facilities in parks as well, or if these are separate because they may be more dedicated to serving the homeless community.
No, it's anywhere that we can get the automatic public toilets installed. And this is a big issue that's way bigger than us. The underlying problem with the automatic public toilet, I can't remember if you were around for this, but the underlying problem is that the electrical and plumbing requirements for them are onerous, and so they're very difficult to cite. I think you need 12 feet of underground clearance, and so this has been very slow going. I probably should report more formally on this, but I'm sitting with Jesus on a coordinating committee convened by CB5 and CB1 about restroom access. And among other things, they are talking about trying to extend the model used in the Battery Park City zone to other parts of the city, where essentially the Battery Park City Authority, which is a public-private agency, basically, is coordinating private landowners that provide restroom access and is providing some financial support to enable restroom access and cleaning and security, so that people who are in Battery Park City have access to restrooms, even if they're on private property. And that's another model that we might look at. I think that's what CB5, which represents the middle, of our district, around Grand Central, is interested in.
Okay, to keep going, there's another line item for restrooms and showers specifically.
Yes.
And I'm wondering if this and the former are two things that can be combined, or if we need to think about them separately.
No, I think you're right, that we should think specifically about what we want to ask the city for in regard to restrooms, and make as concrete a request as we can, because we've learned by now that just saying to the city there aren't enough places for people to pee will not lead to any action. They already know that. We want to make them do some specific thing that we have to decide what it is.
Right. And it looks like in the restrooms and showers line item that it talks about how there are actually, what are they called? Alexandra, can you go to that? Oh yeah, you're there. Somewhere I read that there are actual physical facilities that are sitting in storage somewhere. I don't know if that's in this one.
Oh yeah, no, there are.
And
there
then there's another comment somewhere about how it may work to have nonprofits facilitate these.
Yeah.
So in any case, there are a lot of issues, and it sounds like there's stuff happening, but I'm wondering if for the purposes of our budget request, we might want to combine these two line items.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let me do a report back and email to you all about the restroom committee, so that we have some grounds to talk about this when we convene next month. Civilization beds. All right, got it. So, just to be clear, we don't need to resolve this tonight. We just need to begin to get some momentum, so that within the next, ideally next month, we will be able to present some revised stuff to the budget committee. Right, Alexandra? They need it before the summer?
I'd have to get back to you on that one.
Okay.
I'll double check with Jesus just to make sure I have the date right.
Okay. It's either next month or soon after that, because then we go dark or dark-ish during the summer. And I know that these go in the fall. So, all right. I see no hands are up. Does anyone have any objection if we move on from this topic? No, all right, great. Alexander, would you mind stopping the screen share? I was trying to see if Sandra's physical hand was up, but I can't see the physical hands when the screen share is on. So, all right. The only other, we're moving on to old new business, and one thing that I wanted to bring up is that Councilmember Rivera introduced a package of bills last week to promote social housing, and this is what she alluded to one of these in at full board, but there are several, and the underlying thrust is to make it easier for tenants to organize in some specific ways. One is a city bill, the Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, or COPA, which is a companion to the state bill, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act that passed. TOPA permits tenants to organize, to buy out their to buy out their buildings with the first right of refusal if the buildings go on the market. And COPA would require buildings that are being sold to be offered to nonprofits on a list for purchase before they were offered to general purchasers. So the idea is that there could be nonprofits that are prepared to do conversions to social housing, but don't have buildings. And when buildings go on the market, they would have an opportunity to purchase those at market rate before other commercial developers would, or at least would have an opportunity to consider it. And one of the other significant ones is one that she mentioned in full board, which is the establishment of a municipal New York City vacant apartment registry, where if an apartment was vacant, it would have to be registered, and the city would be required to conduct housing code inspections of, I believe it's 15% of the apartments in the registry every year. And the idea is that, right now, if the apartment next door to you and your building is full of rats, empty and full of rats, you have no recourse. And this would give tenants the ability to call for inspections on vacant apartments in their own buildings that were providing a hazard. My inclination is that these are the sorts of things that we might support, but I'm interested in whether, from what you've heard, the rest of you agree.
I agree. I think COPA we've discussed before, and
okay,
maybe even written a resolution.
We did a resolution for the state bill, for TOPA. Corinne called my attention to that last time we discussed it. She found it. She found the records. I don't think we did a resolution for COPA, but since Councilmember Rivera has introduced these bills as a package, we could respond to them as a package if we wanted to. It sort of makes sense to discuss them as a unit. Should I draft a resolution before next month for us to discuss and consider adopting? All right, I'm seeing some nods, so I will take that as a yes. I'm writing these things down so I don't forget to do any of them. Alexandra, our schedule is such that we meet in May after full board. This is what I hate about this committee. Nothing to do with all of you. It's that we meet so late that any action we take essentially gets held over for 3 weeks until the next full board. And there is a full board in June, or there isn't?
There's a full board on Wednesday, June 8th.
All right, fine. So the May meeting, roughly 3 weeks from now, because I think we're meeting a little late, 4 weeks from now, is our last chance to get resolutions approved by this committee to get them passed by full board before the summer recess. So I should get that one in. And as a sort of pivot from that, are there any other issues that the people in this room feel like we absolutely must get taken up as resolutions by full board before the summer? Okay, that's fine. We got plenty going on. So that was my new business item, and I got an action item out of it. Are there any other items of old or new business that anyone would like to bring up? I see no hands, and I don't have anything else. Is there a motion to adjourn? Sandra has made a motion to adjourn.
Yes, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. We don't need a second. I'll just wait a moment to see if there are any objections to that. And seeing no objections, this meeting is adjourned at 7:28 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for spending an hour with me tonight.